there's one thing, I don't know if you felt this way about the podcast, is because we weren't thinking monetize. We didn't need to monetize when we started it. We were more invested in the relationship capital we were going to get from it. And it's really interesting. Like I always said, it's hard for someone I really want to meet and sit down and talk with. It's hard to just say, hey, Josh, I don't know you, but we want to go get lunch.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird.
It's a weird thing.
But when you say, hey, I got this podcast, cool platform, check it out, see if it's something that fits in your lane, would love to have you on it. It was such a cool, like, warm introduction to people. Because a lot of times, today, like, probably half the guests I had on, I met that day, which was even more challenging. Because the ones who I'd have on who I had history with, I'm like, okay, you kind of have that fallback of comfort. But the ones I met right then, I'm like, oh, shit, this guy's really important. And I had, like, some big hitters on, and I'm just meeting them, like, okay, you don't really have that comfort conversation. But now, that was the biggest regret. There were some we've done deals with, some have invested in companies, some are our clients now, some I'm involved. Like, it's so funny that the capital that was built through relationships on it, that was probably worth more than anything if we tried monetizing it with ad dollars and all the other usual.
Yeah, I've never even considered what it would be in terms of monetization value. But yeah, relationship capital, I've always believed in that. Dan felt, how do you say his last name?
Fulkerson.
Sorry, Jeff.
Fleischman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Fenster, is that how you say
Jeff
it?
Fenster.
Jeff Fenster.
Yeah, he was on my podcast.
Was he?
That's an example.
Yeah. You said relationship capital, and Dan introduced me to him a long time ago, and then I've read his book. Like, his book is great. It's always things that I always thought, but someone put it in words. But it makes a lot of sense.
He's a savage.
He is, yeah.
You should have him on.
Yeah. I would love to. But
except now he's got
big.
His own.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, he now launched his, and he
crushing it.
He's crushing. He's pumping out content, and, like, it's funny because there's just those people that they're going to do something and do it
big,
outstanding.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm like, okay, he launched a podcast that he doesn't play small. Like, he's going.
Well, it's great. Dan talked about him on my episode when I had him on, and I've never heard of him. And slowly, like, I started following him. Slowly, I'm just seeing this guy fucking everywhere, like, all the time. And then just like blew up. Right, he has all these people like Tim. What's that book? Relentless. Tim Grover. Tim Grover. He had Tim Grover on. I'm like,
he
watching
had
these
Grover
people.
on?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
And I'm like, dude,
that's big.
That's big.
Yeah.
Like, and I listen to that book every year because that book is just savage. It's gangster.
Yeah.
So I just like watched his, and then we ended up meeting and passing at one of the events that someone had that Dan was a part of, and then Dan connected me with him and was like, you guys should connect and go on each other's podcasts, which is cool. But
that's rad,
nothing's ever happened to it. But yeah,
that's rad.
But it's the power of connections. Like, I would have never connected with him if it wasn't for Dan. And Dan's a great connector of human. Connector.
Yeah,
and a good human.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk about, we just got right into this, which I love.
We did half a podcast out there.
Yeah, no, we did. We were talking about a lot of different shit, which I'm totally down to get into. Let's talk a little bit about you guys acquire. So you have Poke Vita, Point Loma Sports Bar. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called Good Bar.
Good Bar
in Point Loma. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been there, so I'm gonna have to try it out.
You got to stop by. Best cheesesteak in San Diego.
Oh, cool! I love cheesesteak. And then Poke Vita, you have the restaurant, and then you have the Dropkick. You guys acquired Dropkick?
Yeah, so it was previously called Seven.
Okay.
Coffee Cold Brew. And funny story, the owner was a retired pitcher for the Padres, Heath Bell. So he retired and had a passion for coffee and put it all together in 2017. And I knew someone with a small piece of equity who called me right away. Was just excited about the acquisition and being involved with Heath Bell. And I said, well, hey, man, I had an office in the gas lamp at the time, and they did a service we still offer where we give you like a kegerator machine and cold brew. It's subscription-based. And I'm like, hey, bring me a machine. I want to support. And the cold brew was fantastic. And then I just tried to, before I ever got into entrepreneurism, I was in sales and beverage. So I'm like, hey, if there's any way to get involved, I miss that, I missed that part of work. And it never was. Heath wanted to do it his own way. But at Pandemic, it's so funny that I say how things kind of all get connected. At our grand opening for Poke Vita, because it was supposed to be March 2020. That was literally our grand opening. We pushed it to May. No dine-in. No, it was all, it was just a crappy great, but crappy grand opening. My buddy with the piece of equity in the company, he came there because I supported them there too. I'm like, hey, let's put your coffee in our poke shop. And he came to like deliver, show up. And he's like, hey, I think Heath is going to let the company go. He's just frustrated, COVID. He's moving his family to Texas, like a lot of people. And I go, no way, let me check it out. And so I took Dan, another guy, a couple people that are invested in other companies. And this is like in the trenches. This is April or May of 2020. So like, we don't even know what we're doing. I furloughed my agency, the restaurants, just barely limping open, other shit. And I'm like, yeah, let me check it out because I love the product.
Sure.
So we went down to the brewery, and on the surface, everything kind of checked out with the operation, but then it was kind of looking under the hood of financials and just everything how he was doing. And we struck a deal from here to Texas because he was already in Texas, furloughed his staff.
Crazy.
And we were actually like managing his team. Because I knew like the longer this stays closed, we're going to lose shelf space, distribution, all that. So I'm like, we got to get things back open.
Right.
So we were managing before we actually inked the deal. So his employees are like, who the fuck are these people?
Right.
I'm like, well,
that's cool though.
Yeah, it was. I tell the story very lighthearted now, but in 12 years of owning and operating businesses, I hope I can say this indefinitely. It was the biggest challenge, like the hardest thing I've ever fucking done. I think acquiring a company is really challenging. Acquiring it during a pandemic is like, what are you doing? and we were faced with we manufacture this product. It's distributed all over, and you're dealing with supply chain issues, closures. A big part of our customer base is restaurants and on-premise accounts. They're all closed. Mm-hmm. So navigating that was all the headaches, and then just the nuts and bolts of acquiring and taking over a company. And we wanted to rebrand it and do all that. So it was so hard.
I think it was a scary time for anyone running any type of business.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of people who were getting furloughed and getting laid off. And then obviously we saw what happened. Like most companies ended up. So, I think your industry probably was challenging for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. On my side of things, it wasn't as challenging. Like after the first 4 months, it was weird, and then it started like uptick really fast.
Did that surprise you? Did you guys think it was going to be the opposite? Like it was going to go really?
I stopped buying houses.
Yeah.
I took my foot off the gas a little bit. No one knows what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. You can't plan for some shit like that.
No.
So it's just weird.
It's so interesting watching consumer behavior because I would have never predicted that. No. The way that people were spending.
Right.
Like on bigger, not just like ticky-tack stuff, like buying homes and cars and all that. I would have never in a million years someone said, hey, the world's going to shut down. We're having a pandemic. Oh, and people are going to spend like it's nothing. Like, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
No way.
So yeah, it was interesting, but definitely food and bev, hospitality, tourism, because San Diego is such a tourism town. Right. It's not like a light switch. That's what I tell our politicians treat it like it's a light switch. Like, hey, you're open now. You're closed. Now you're open. Like, do you understand what it takes to reopen most of these businesses, and the bigger they are, as far as like getting your distributors back in with all your food and products, getting your staff back onboarded, all that. It's not a light switch.
No.
And also then like getting sales back,
right.
getting your customers back. The tourism, like we work with a lot of hotels. They probably had the longest rebound, because they rely off the like corporate business and travel and people coming to town, and that was just, dude, that was dark for.
It was.
A while, man.
Yeah.
They had a terrible 2021, fantastic 2022, and now it's like normalizing.
Yeah.
But man, it's been interesting to watch.
How is that roller coaster bit? Like now that you're kind of over that hump, we don't have those COVID problems. I was thinking there's still a little supply chain issues, right?
There are. We're fortunately, the biggest thing we import green coffee.
Cool.
We have a really strong large importer. And we never, knock on wood, we never really got massive price gouging or issues there, which is great. And where we're importing from the farmers, they rely on it too, so they can't have the same
right.
We need this shit out.
Yeah.
So fortunately, we didn't feel a huge pinch there. The biggest one for us was just the end buyers.
Right.
But we were lucky in that sense.
That's good, man. What you're in hotels? I saw you guys have like an espresso martini one too, right?
That's espresso martinis are, oh man, that trend right now. I'm not even calling it a trend because it's not espresso martinis. It's coffee cocktails is the thing, and it's going to continue being the thing. It's why we've gotten such popularity in like hotels, restaurants, bars. I mean, as a man, I love coffee cocktails. I love espresso martinis, and I also love like because we have different flavor cold brews. I love seeing what these like bartenders and mixologists are doing, like mixing our horchata cold brew with some will do like tequila base.
Oh, that's cool.
We have this account in Bankers Hill who's doing a whiskey based espresso martini, and I went in. I'm like, I have to try it.
Yeah.
It's delicious. So like I think they're gonna get more creative, and like my opinion is it's almost replacing. Whereas adult, you can't really drink the vodka Red Bulls anymore.
No.
But you need something caffeinated.
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna stay out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is kind of like the more prolific version of a Red Bull vodka.
I'm with you, dude. I love espresso martini. Last night we went to dinner last night and I had 2.
Yeah.
But like total fan. But I also love coffee too. We got an espresso machine recently. I've been loving that.
Yeah.
But I've actually noticed, since you've been in the coffee industry, have you found out that a lot of your friends actually don't drink coffee?
It's hit or miss. I've found out what kind of coffee drinkers my friends are, and that's really interesting. Even sometimes our staff, like there's a definite difference between, age, gender, like what females. I used to like bark at. We had a couple girls working in our office, and they'd come in every fucking day with Starbucks, and I said, "What are you doing?" And they just preferred that, like, because all of our cold brew and coffee is 0 sugar. It's like 0 anything,
right?
Except for horchata. But they love that, like the sugary base, the lattes and frappe, like all those. Which then we actually started looking like, well, maybe we need to make something a little more along those lines. So we actually kegged some flavors that are a little bit sweeter, a little bit more sugar, for that reason. But it's interesting seeing what kind of coffee drinker people are.
My wife always buys the pumpkin spice every October, November. There's like
Our pumpkin spice?
No, just a pumpkin. Yeah,
I was gonna say
a creamer like for the house. And then recently, I saw a few friends. They went to this restaurant downtown and they had pumpkin spice espresso martinis. And I was like, that's a good fucking idea. So you guys have a pumpkin spice?
We do, and I love it. Like we have a pumpkin spice during the pumpkin season, which is crazy.
Yeah,
it's like a holiday season now.
It is, but it should just be year round. Like shit's good.
I know. And we've kicked that around. Like, do we keep this year round? Because we have customers. We only do a limited run through like the 4th quarter, but then we also release a peppermint patty cold brew. So all those restaurants, then they acknowledge that, and they're starting to make like cocktails with pumpkin, peppermint patty. Like right now, our peppermint patty's gone absolutely crazy at restaurants. What they're mixing it. with.
I can see that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man, it's fun.
Yeah, that's how were you a big coffee drinker before going into that business?
I was a pretty big coffee drinker.
Yeah.
And I knew like coffee's such a big market, and
it is.
And because I came from beverage, I knew the categories I didn't want to touch. I didn't want to go into booze,
right?
Energy drink, none of those, unless we had 7+ figures in the bank and distribution stat. Like there had to be a lot more boxes checked for me to even consider that. I knew coffee is always growing. And I knew specifically when we were in 2020, Nitro Cold Brew was just really gaining popularity.
Right.
And it's funny, it almost like cannibalized just straight cold brew. Now Nitro Infused is like, you got to have it.
Right.
You have to have it.
Yeah.
So I knew there was a lot of room for us to play. And I also knew a lot of coffee companies, they're very traditional. Very by the book as far as how they market, how they walk and talk and treat their brand.
Starbucks.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be that. I knew there's a void. Like, okay, let's create a brand that's fun. Let's create a brand that also speaks to like the coffee drinker. The demo has gone down.
Right.
When we were growing up, like I didn't even think about coffee as a kid, a teenager. I don't even think I drank coffee in college or like post college. But now my nieces. 12, and my other niece just turned 18. It drives me crazy. I actually forbid it because they go to the local coffee shop almost daily. They're getting like the lattes and all that. I didn't even think about that. So we wanted to create a brand that was a little bit more rebellious, and a little more fun, and spoke to like the younger.
I like that.
Your
demo. Younger self.
Yeah. Because the coffee drinker, what's good is you still will always have like that older coffee drinker will always exist. But now we've just opened it up because now there's so many younger kids who are drinking coffee.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
How old are you?
wild. 38.
38.
I
Okay.
didn't think about that.
Yeah, I know. I always think about it. I'm turning 35 next month. So yeah, coffee for me when I was younger was non-existent.
Didn't even know.
I was like an energy drink guy, like
Same.
in high school.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it.
No. But it's funny because now I can't live without having a cup of coffee.
I know.
2 cups of coffee in the morning, which is interesting.
I know, man.
When you started the Poke Company, were you? It's funny. We talked about Jeff. Jeff always talks about don't start a restaurant if you're a cook, or most restaurants are started by cooks that don't survive. Were you like a cook?
No, not at all.
Like Poke, was that? Did you even like Poke when you started the Poke Company?
Yeah. That's really good advice by Jeff.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's good advice in general. If like you're the so to speak like engineer or artist of the company, it's a lot more challenging because what those guys have, they're loaded with talent, but they just kind of have like the business function of their brain just doesn't work. You need them. You need someone like that who obviously, you need a great chef, someone who knows the recipes, the menu inside and out, but you have to have someone who knows how to build the business.
Right.
Especially with what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
I fortunately, one of my main partners in the company, he's like the best operator in food and bev in San Diego, in my opinion.
That's awesome.
Again, he can hold his own in the back of house, but he's not a cook.
Right.
But he knows all the inner workings. But Poke came to me. I was in Big Bear on a vacation in 2018, and I went to my first Poke shop, Big Bear of all places. And now I still stay in touch with the owners because they like inspired it. They're awesome people. It's called Tropicali. They just got named the #1 Yelp Poke restaurant in the country. They're in Big Bear.
In Big Bear, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You have to go there because their customer service and the people are incredible. But I was there, I went in, and I was blown away. I'm like, I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
And I actually tried bringing their brand to San Diego. So I hit them like, hey, so we're in this space. I'd love to you want to license it or do some sort of partnership. And they're just kind of small town people. They weren't really moving fast. They were also moving locations right onto the main strip of Big Bear. So I'm like, Pete, what are you doing? We can do this on our own.
Yeah,
we got the team to do it. And that's how it was inspired.
That's awesome, dude.
It's crazy.
What was the startup like with that? Did you do it all on your own, or did you get funding?
Yeah, we did. We brought in a little bit of investment. What's good is it's a fast casual restaurant.
Right.
So, it's about a couple thousand square feet of space. We were really attracted to that, actually. We didn't want to open a full service restaurant.
Right.
Because fast casual is great from like an operating standpoint. It's a little less, you're not putting out as much in labor to manage the day-to-day isn't as intensive. It's I hate describing it this way. It's like
The
it's like a
overhead's a little less.
Chipotle for raw fish.
Right.
You go up and order. But the plan was, we want to duplicate this fast. So the first one, the real work was just getting like the mechanics of how the whole space was going to work and the design and all that, and obviously nailing the product.
Right.
But then the idea was to duplicate it.
And franchise out.
Yeah.
How many do you guys?
We still have one.
Okay.
The reason Dropkick is the reason that we had to stop, only because Dropkick, we acquired it right after we opened Poke, and it exploded. So we've been running Poke Vita, but the original blueprint was before pandemic and before we acquired this big company. So now these are actually a partner conversation we have right now. Like, do we still do that, or my time is fully invested in Dropkick. So I kind of defer to what my partner is like. Hey, what do you want to do?
Right.
Because I'm completely wrapped up in Dropkick.
Do you bring in like a new operator then to run Poke Vita? Like if you were to do the franchise out, would you bring in a new operator so that they can start running that?
Yeah, we've kicked around a couple ideas. We actually have one or two people, one in particular who works for us who, could be that person. There's so much because we've been through this, there's a lot to sort through.
Right.
And we're such a I feel like we troubleshoot and problem solve before any type of. We're so conservative now. I used to be a little bit bigger of a risk taker. That we don't exactly know which direction we want to go.
Gotcha. Man, that makes sense. I mean, not everyone has it figured out. knows what they want to do.
Yeah, and I always remind, because it's frustrating for us, but I'm like, hey guys, when we open, you got to remember. I think people have short-term memory. Is like before this pandemic, we were all completely different humans. What we did professionally, personally, at least me. And so I said, hey guys, when we first came back and said, let's open Poke, I had this marketing agency. This was our first restaurant. we did have the bar over there, but it was running. You know, now we have a massive distributorship, a beverage company in Southern California, now Arizona. You know, we're kind of like, we're still catching up, you know, so let's give ourselves a little grace.
Right.
And understand like, okay, that was the original plan, but plans change.
Yeah.
And I'm totally happy with how the plans
That's
changed.
good. I mean, do that. At the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Is it challenging running all three businesses?
It was until about a year and a half ago that I really had to voice or step in and say, hey, because what we have positioned for Dropkick, it's the biggest of the businesses. And I said, I can't toggle anymore. Because yes, it is. It's really hard.
Capacity.
Yeah, it's hard turning off one brain, especially when you're talking to a different set of employees, different set of problems, initiatives, all that. It's really hard. And I've done that for a long time. And I said, hey, if we really want this thing to go to the moon, I can't toggle anymore.
Right.
Now I'm still absolutely present. You know, we still have our meetings. I know all the I know what's going on.
Of course, yeah.
But I can't toggle. And what's good is it was a bit of a opportunity cost, but we've seen it. We've seen the results. Like it's been worth the change. And I have partners, so it was kind of changing everyone. Like, hey, now my commitment to you now is you're not going to have to toggle and think about I've got all this.
Right.
You know, the good, the bad, the fires, the storms. I've got it. So I think that was a really fundamental change we made that's paid off.
I think opportunity cost too. Like for you, I could see like the coffee business is massive, or the coffee industry, like that space, scaling, something like that versus scaling a restaurant or franchising out, I think would be more challenging. And maybe that's my limiting belief.
Scaling
the coffee versus scaling like Poke Vita, for example, opening another bar.
Yeah, I mean, every restaurant has its ceiling, and you want to
Right.
max that ceiling. Dropkick ceiling is so fucking high.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah, the opportunity
That's why I tell them, like, guys, my commitment also too is like I can create what we typically budget another Poke Vita location doing annually. Like I can do that Dropkick in like give me like a couple months. As far as like bringing on new distribution, or we're working on a new customer right now in Arizona, like that is arguably one or two what those would do, which is great. But, that's the enormity of this type of business, and it's also the reason we don't want me to be toggling any other way. Like that's what we want. We want this thing, and we're all also in it for it. Like this is an asset. Like the more like that's great short term. It's bringing in more short term, but it's also adding to its long term. Like eventually we want to sell. Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So who is Peter? What do you like to do for fun?
Oh,
we could talk. I'm sure we could talk all day about businesses and growing and growing that. But
fitness has always been big. I love anything like active, outdoor, challenging. I'm like a glutton for. It's funny, we were messaging about the fast.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that.
Yeah,
you reminded me.
I'm a glutton for anything that's like that you legit think of and it scares you. And I realized right before that fast, I'm like, I haven't done any, like, it's been a minute since I've done something that was really like, oh man, this is gonna suck. Or I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
Which like going into the new year, I'm now like I'm earmarking like, okay, you're gonna have this regularly doing things that scare you a little bit more. But I love anything outdoor fitness. I am single, so I have committed, like, your status single or in a relationship can change like that.
Yep.
And there's a lot of changes that go with it. I'm good at both. So while I'm single, I also am committed to being like untethered. So my free time too, I like to travel where I can.
100%.
For sure. So when I can get away, even like, to go for a snowboarding trip or something else, that's kind of like, once you get a wife and children and all that, then that's your traveling. Yeah. That's your time, which is fine.
Yeah. You just travel different.
Yeah.
It's seasons of life, man.
Yeah. So, and even I like just, dude, I'm not doing any exotic, I don't have a lot of time to get away. So I'm not doing exotic trips out of the country, but I do love just like exploring. Yeah. I think that's what it is. I love exploring, adventuring. So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fast.
Yeah.
So you did, dude. By the way, did you see Dana White's transformation?
That's why I did it.
I know.
I'm a Dana White super fan,
dude. I saw that shit and I was like, holy shit, dude, he got shredded.
I know. Well,
Like-
he got linked up with Gary Brecka
Yeah.
a few months ago, and that's when I really started listening and following Gary Brecka. I've actually reached out to the 10X team because I've done a blood panel before with a company local, and I'm due to do another one. I'm going to do it through them and just kind of get put through the system of, okay, what all do you guys offer? Because, I mean, the results speak for himself. You look at him.
Oh, yeah.
He looks incredible.
Yeah.
And he's not a bullshitter. That's what I love about him as
Me
a
too.
business owner.
Yeah.
He tells exactly what he's gone through and, like, the feelings he's having. And at his age, I'm like, dude, that's fucking incredible. I shared that with my mother. I'm like, Mom, you got to look into this. Like, this is incredible. But, yeah, him posting about the water fast was definitely when it put on my radar. The next day I went into our brewery, and our head roaster is a retired NFL guy. I went to him. I went to one of my other partners. And actually 2 of my other partners, I said, hey, guys, we're doing this. I said, I need a team to do this together.
Little accountability partners.
Yeah. And just to, like, have them, I posted, like, our text chain at one point in the middle of it. But by Corey, our head roaster, and he's been through the NFL, done all sorts of, like, different health, wellness stuff. He's like, oh, I've done this before. He made me feel a little bit more confident.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, down, let's do it. And so I think a week and a half later, we picked the 3 days we were going to do. And it was challenging, man.
Do you feel like the first day was the hardest and then the second and third was like a little easier?
So first day, no, because you're still kind of riding off the meal that you had a little bit. So it's just kind of like, I'm a little bit hungry, but whatever. The second day, why it sucks is it's a mental game. So you're like, I have nothing to look forward to today because I can't eat till tomorrow. So all second day, like, and I also describe it, it's so boring. Water. And one day one of the days, which I'm like, dude, I can't do anything about it. I had a meeting in Vegas with a new supplier we're using. I literally was flying in and flying out same day. First day of my fast. I'm like, I'm gonna be in airports. I bought 4 different bottles of Dasani water because I'm like, I'm not refilling it with shitty water.
Yeah.
And I can't eat food. I'm looking at the Shake Shack at the Vegas airport and I'm smelling. I'm like, oh my God. And then my flight home is delayed, so I'm sitting there even longer, just dousing water.
Right.
But yeah, day 2 is just like, oh man, I got a whole day. And then day 3 is even more of a mindfuck because you're like thinking, now all you're thinking about is that meal at 5 o'clock. Me and my partners, we went to Good Bar. And I'm like, dude, we let the chef know. He knew we were already on a fast.
Yeah.
We had fish tacos lined up, backed by a cheesesteak lined up. And then we heard all this advice about, ease back into after a fast, have soup or smoothie, this and that. Like, I gave like a Lombardi speech to the partners. I'm like, hey, I've been eating 3 meals a day or more for 38 years, and I just went 3 days without. Fuck what that thing says. I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah.
You guys are with me or you're against me. We all did. We went through the tacos, the cheesesteak, and then I took a picture. I got home, and I picked up like dessert on the way home, and so did my other But I will tell you, the next day, we each unanimously felt incredible. And my one partner, he's had a lot of trouble sleeping. He also has 2 kids, just, all the stress and everything, plus a family and kids, which I don't have that. And he's had a really hard time sleeping. He literally, he's like, that is the best night's sleep I've had in at least a year or 2.
Really? I would think it would be the opposite.
I know. But it's also changed my eating habits now.
Interesting.
Because I was always looking for that next meal. And your mind will tell yourself like, hey man, you haven't had lunch yet. You need lunch. You need lunch. Like, I don't think about that. And it's also like, dude, shut up. You went 3 days without a meal.
Right.
You're fine. So now I'm trying to commit to 2 meals a day.
Okay.
I'm trying to do breakfast, dinner, and have a longer fast in between, like 14 to 16 hours. Because I just realized, dude, we're always shoving food in our mouths.
Yeah, I used to intermittent fast, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago when I first really got into fitness. And then now I can't, I probably could, but it's a limiting belief because I'm always like, I want to eat breakfast. So I go to the gym in the morning. So I'm like starving after the gym. So I'm eating I have a smaller breakfast, then I'll have lunch and I'll have dinner. But yeah, I want to do it. When you post it, when I actually saw Dana White's thing, I read about it, I watched an interview about it, and then I saw you post it, and I was like, 72 hours is a little bit more manageable than 86.
Yeah.
I think 86 would be a little rough because I get hangry. When
I'm
I'm dieting or trying to cut down for summertime or something, my wife knows that if I don't have food, I can be a little tense, especially with work stuff going on or anything else. But
One of the partners, he said that at the last 30 minutes when we were about to eat, he talked about, he read the study on from 72 to 86, what happens. I'm like, bro, this is my cap. And maybe if I mentally went into it knowing I'm going 86, I would have been more prepared. But I was at my end.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done, dude.
Did you feel like lethargic at work and stuff? Like just like not wanting to be there?
Not as much as you think. I also didn't, well, I think third day I screwed it up too, because I went up to my building's gym. I didn't work out each day. I took those 2 off. And I did a light workout the third day. And I think it just it activated my body. And I got out of it. And I was like, I would never say I felt starving each day. But when I did that on the last day, I'm like, oh my God, I think it activated some shit.
Yeah.
And it might not have been the best idea, but Corey, he worked out each day.
Nice.
So I would say do it.
Yeah.
Just
I'm going to do
man.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more like you just get in your head, like with anything.
No, for sure.
You get in your head.
Yeah. How much did you weigh yourself before and after?
Yeah, we all lost weight.
Cool.
I didn't want to, but I lost between 6 and 8 pounds.
Okay.
And
I mean, a lot of that was water weight,
Yeah.
For most
Yeah,
people.
we expected it.
Yeah, of course.
Corey lost 14, but he's
wow.
a bigger guy. He's
Okay.
240 pounds. Kenny was about the same, 10. So, yeah, that was my worry. I don't, I kind of just worked up my weight to where I wanted to be. I'm like, I hope I don't a lot. I'm like, I'm going to make that shit up really quick.
Yeah. No, yeah, of course. Does the 10X, when you do the blood panels with them, is it more is it a clinic? Like a TRT, or is it just
No, so dude, running your health off blood panels is so great. And I went to a company here called Live in Little Italy. And they do it, and they just send you to any any blood.
I go to the clinic. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. It's just like that.
Yeah.
And then that's why I said I've done it through a company here. So now I'm curious to see what they do. And I haven't actually drawn blood yet with them. But I went in with the doctor at Live, and it's great. They run you through everything. Like everything from your testosterone, sex drive, sleep, just all the things. And then he kind of curates, you can do all the things.
Right.
Or you can kind of, what do you want to attack?
Right.
And he also will tell you what you're deficient in. That for me was dude, I need to do this more consistently twice a year, where you're really seeing the heartbeat of
improvements.
Your health.
Yeah. 5 years ago, I found out that I had low testosterone. So I've been on TRT for the last 5 years.
No shit.
But yeah, when I went in for my blood stuff, it's funny because when you're going to those clinics, most of the time, that's the reason why I'm asking. Most of the time, they're just going over your testosterone, you have good blood pressure, the way that your blood is flowing through your veins, different things like that. But I just never, back then, I didn't think of it in terms of a health reason. I just wanted to get my sex drive back, get my sleep better, and have my testosterone raised where I even wanted to have sex in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So when I went for all of those reasons. But now looking back, I got my blood, you have to go in every year to redo it again to see where you're at, where your levels are. But I've listened to the Gary Brecka podcast, and it was talking about a lot of that stuff. And it's just interesting because most of it, I wasn't thinking about overall health. I was just thinking of what's the solution to to the one problem that I thought I had. But then other things can come up. Now, talking about marriage and stuff and kids. Now I don't know about kids. I've been on TRT for so long that I know that
really?
You don't produce natural sperm anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So when I went this past year, I told them that I was getting married, and they asked me about kids, and I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, you're probably gonna have to go off. And I'm like, I wish I was kind of aware of some of this
stuff. But by going off, will that it'll kind of
I don't know.
Interesting.
I haven't gone off. I've never gone off. I've been on straight.
What's your experience been?
It's been good.
Good and bad. What's been the good? What's been the bad, if there's any?
I don't think there's been either. Yeah, I mean, everyone who I've known people who actually take testosterone for drug abuse, and some of them have felt a lot different. For me, I just felt normal after taking it. Because I was already deficient in testosterone. My testosterone was already so low. So I just felt better. But when I was younger, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, I felt like Superman." I'm like, no, I don't feel like that.
I've heard that.
Yeah, but it's I think everyone's affected by certain things differently. Alcohol, drugs, whatever.
Yeah.
For me, it just wasn't. But I wish that I would have known earlier about the lack of sperm production, because now thinking about kids and the next season of my life, it's like, okay, it's gonna be really hard after 5 years of being on TRT to get off of it. And I know from everyone that I've talked to, it's very challenging, especially after going on for a really long time. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once my blood kind of points that direction, I'm going to try TRT for sure.
Yeah. You'll fucking blow up.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna like meet or talk to a lot of people in person in detail about their experience. Like one or two, and they said the same thing. Like Superman's probably the closest way of describing it. But dude, that's great.
Yeah, and I think too, for some people, they're deficient in testosterone, but they like I was still able to build muscle and things like that. So it was different. My experience with it was different than what I think a lot of other people were, just because I was deficient. But yeah, it's that's interesting. I'm curious to see how your blood work goes.
Are you trying to get in the baby making business now? So you have to get out of Dodge with.
So we are kind of planning a little bit. We are trying to do our honeymoon in Italy this next year, first quarter sometime, probably like April, May. So I think she's just going to kind of like wean herself off of birth control and then wait until like to actually try, probably when we're in Italy, and then and then we'll see how it goes. But we've also been on the other camp where it's like, if we don't have kids, we don't have kids. Because now I'm kind of in that mindset of like, maybe it can't happen.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll just get more dogs and call it a day.
Yeah. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think people get a little bit too hung up on, you can still have a great life.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. We live, with kids, it's like you're selfless. Like when you're just married or just single, you're very selfish. Which isn't a bad thing. It's just different stages of life. For us, we enjoy to be selfish with each other, be able to go travel and go do what we want to do and have a good time and drink and hang out and be by a pool and tropical weather and all that different stuff. With kids, it's going to be completely different. So we'll just be in a different season of life if that happens.
Yeah.
So,
man, that's become so relevant for me in the last, I think COVID really brought it to light. And it's interesting having these thoughts as a single man. Because I do want kids, and I think it's been heightened in the last couple of years only because, I think what COVID did is it shrunk and removed everything and like really exposed our true identity. Before pandemic, what I at least thought was my identity, it wasn't foolish, but it wasn't like substance. And also too, like, obviously I'm in like I'm a builder mindset, a growth mindset. Like, I think that's one of my biggest attributes as far as like owning, operating businesses. I'm just obsessed with building. But then I hit a point, I'm like, what am I building this for? Like, I love the fact that it employs people. I love I love just the full-on mechanics of running a business, even the challenges. But then I had to take a couple steps back, like, okay, well, what do you love about it, like, personally?
Right.
And, you're going to build it so you can be on the highest mountain by yourself, or build it so, like, it's all about the company you bring with. And 100%, like, the people I'm building with are part of that. But you also kind of look like, okay, who's going to benefit from this other than me? You know? And I think there's like, you probably experience this even like, it's not necessarily just kids, but like even having a wife there's something great about like, it creates a different drive in you.
100%.
And I don't understand like the people who they're with someone who does the opposite. I'm like, dude, run, get away from it. You should be with someone like, oh my God, when I leave this house, I'm going like balls to the wall.
Right.
Because I just want to come home. Like, it just gives you a different drive.
Yeah.
I think there's something definitely to be said about that. And I don't know yet, but I've been fortunate to have a business partner with kids. And most all of my brothers, my best friends have kids now. To kind of witness that with my own two eyes. I've done a lot of like learning as a third party.
Sure.
That like, I don't care what anybody says. That's what matters the most.
It is.
That's what really matters.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Dude, I felt something very different when we got engaged. What I was working for and what I was working towards. Like, yeah, we were dating for a long now married, it does feel a little different, but it felt more like the instant change was when we got engaged, where I was like, okay, this is big picture. I'm doing what I'm doing now, to where when we do have kids, I don't have to be like the dad who is constantly having to be at work. I can go to sports games or whatever, wherever I need to be, because I didn't have that when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest reason why I feared, one, committing to being in like a long-term relationship, because I didn't have a father figure that I looked up to. So it was challenging. Mm-hmm. And it was still scary for the longest time. Mm-hmm. That's actually, Dan and I talked a lot about this, about like, as we get older, it's like you need to forget about the past a little bit and realize that there is someone out there, and you can find that person that brings that out of you.
Yeah. Well, two things I love about that. One is working for the future you is so powerful.
Oh yeah.
Because I used to kind of just work for the right now.
Of course.
And it's so weird to say this, that I'm working, like, again, as a single man, but I'm working for the future me, because I know I won't always be. Mm-hmm. So I want to work now to like set that up, like, okay, what you just said, like I can then enjoy that season of life.
Yeah.
And not have the stresses mm-hmm. that I have now. Because right now I can bear all those stresses. I'm not thinking about other people or little ones or
right.
All that. But the other thing is, and I always butcher it, and I can't remember who, I listened to someone describing the power of who you pick to be with, mm-hmm. like your partner, your wife, husband, whatever we all want to call it now. Mm-hmm. Like, they described it so perfectly that it is the biggest decision of your entire life. And I'm sure people have heard that, like, oh, of course. But no, if you really boil it down, like, and you're true to the relationship and everything we just talked about here, like they're driving you, you're bringing someone in and saying, hey, I have all of my baggage, my wants, desires, dreams, and goals, but I'm bringing you in, mm-hmm. and I'm inheriting all of yours too, mm-hmm. And you're taking mine.
Yeah.
And we're sharing this thing, so when you have a bad day, I'm going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
When you have a good day, I'm going to have a good day.
Right.
When like you miss a week from now, I miss too.
Right.
Like, that's a really significant thing to sign up for. And also, too, the power of the person you're with can really dictate the direction your life goes.
Right.
Because like I said before, if you're with someone who just you dread or doesn't give you that spark, guess what? You are not going to build personally and professionally as good of a life.
Yeah. I think having someone, if they have a bad day, like you're talking about good and bad days, if she has a bad day, or if like your future wife has a bad day, it would be your responsibility to help pick her up.
Yeah.
And make it better.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, I'll take on all of the bad stuff, and all I'm trying to do is turn it into some type of positive, to where she can take that and have a better day. Mm-hmm. Right? And the same thing with me. Sometimes I just need to vent, or things that are going on that maybe like small things that aren't that big of a deal, but it can affect your day. Mm-hmm. And thankfully I'm with a person who just brings me up after I talk about it. Like, she knows if we, like, I feel like I was going through something a few weeks ago, and I was just like, man, I'm just having like one of those days, mm-hmm. Just not feeling right, not in the best mood, whatever. She gets home, she's like, she knows, we love going to dinner. Like our thing is like date nights, like, go out to dinner, have a few glasses of wine, hang out, maybe an espresso martini. So she like gets home, she's like, we're going to dinner. She like booked reservations. We went to dinner, and then I was like, the next day I was like, back to normal. But it's just like those little things where like your partner knows what brings you out and makes you happier when you have one of those fucked up days.
Yeah.
And we all have them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
It is, 100%.
And it's also like, if we're taking it as the way it's supposed to be, you're getting married.
Yeah.
Or you're married.
You're married. Yeah.
This is for life.
Yeah.
This is life. Mm-hmm. Where else can we say, hey, I'm committing to this one thing for life? It's the only. Mm-hmm. Like, that's so big.
Yeah.
And it's not to be like, people always say, you're too picky. They're like, I don't think like those somewhat apply. But like, no, I'm signing up to do everything you just described, not just this week.
Right.
Not this month. For the rest of my life.
How's dating life been?
What's that?
How's dating life been? Are you on the apps?
Oh, man, that is the number one question these days. and I've developed an opinion on it. Is, I think people's knee-jerk response, anyone who's single right now, who's intentional about dating, is the single life is a mess. Dating's a mess. It's not, and they're not necessarily wrong, but I think it doesn't just apply to dating right now. I think it applies to just relationships in general.
Right.
We're kind of a mess. I know there's just as much issues happening in like marriages and serious relationships
100%.
that are happening in dating. So you gotta really turn the focus around like, okay, well, what is it? I think it's a cultural thing. You know, it's just right now we're in an attention culture. Right now, like our priorities are different. My priorities are definitely different. So when I sit down and like, I'm very intentional now, much different than I was before dating, you know, on what my values are, what I'm looking for. It really narrows the field. And at least what I'm seeing is like, there's not a lot of people or women, it's really hard to find them that have like the values aligned right now specific.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard.
It does.
You know, I don't try to overthink it or get too frustrated, but I always remind them like, guys, this isn't like, I see just as many of these problems happening in marriages and relationships as in single. So I'm not going to sit here and like separate ourselves, like throw a pity party, like, oh my God, it's so bad. And like, no, everybody's having these problems because our tension's all over the place.
Right.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to like I wasn't ready. Like when Wendy and I were dating for a long time, like, dude, we were on and off for a long period of time. We were having a good time, and it one day finally just clicked that like, oh, this is real.
Wild.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of the same thing with, I think, like I could imagine with dating, you're going to meet a lot of fucking people, you know, and you're going to go through a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But maybe it does one day.
Yeah.
And maybe that's when you're ready.
Yeah. That's a big one too. Like you just nailed it. Timing.
Yeah.
I believe not just for dating, I believe in timing on so much, like timing that you're ready for whatever presents itself.
Sure.
Timing is everything, you know, personally in business. Like if I look back, timing was so critical to so much of like my big course correction or course changes in life. The timing was right. I was ready for it.
Yeah.
Where if something comes your way and you're just not ready or prepared, then it just goes.
Yeah.
You know,
I actually have a lot of those instances this year, but it's all related towards business. But yeah, I mean, with the coffee company, like if it wasn't COVID, maybe he would have kept it.
Well, dude, that's a great point. And I say it all the time. If it wasn't COVID, everything wouldn't have been shut down. So we had to spend like 6 to almost 12 months when we first acquired, really digging into just how everything, and we were being really particular on like, how has this company, this machine been running? Just to kind of sign off on, okay, we're happy with this because we knew we wanted to build it into.
Right.
If I would have had everything else like pre-pandemic, like my other company and everything firing, there's no way I would have been able to dedicate the time I did to it. Now, it was very selfless time, unpaid time, all like, it was really seeing the long term, like, okay, I know if I get this thing, like nothing's ever perfect, but if I get this operating right now when things are a little bit, you know, darker, it'll pay off down the road, which it has. But you're right, it wouldn't have. And also too, like I said, right when the world shut down, I'm like, I told a couple of my partners, I'm like, there's gonna be a lot of opportunities that come out of here. And this was one of them, you know? I fortunately was in the right place that the guy mentioned it, but I knew it was a great opportunity, but he wouldn't have done this if the world was, if COVID
Everything was still smooth.
The guy's a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
He had he could have kind of kept running it and kept investing in it and all that, but it was just the frustration and all the things combined. He made a decision, and as I said, it wasn't a misfortune, but it would have never happened. And honestly, for me, from like my first business to now, it couldn't be more of a full circle of all like the experience I've accumulated. It's the business that it was meant for. That's awesome. It is the business.
I love that.
Like what we're doing, the space, the product, the space, everything, how it works, and the scale it can go to. It has every part of like what I've been working on the last 12 years, which I didn't write this into a business plan.
No.
You know, I didn't know. Like I was for years was building up a business that was scaling well before pandemic. And honestly, I had to look at that. Like when we got this, like reopening that business was a daily conversation and really reopening it, like going hard. But what I kept justifying to myself is like, okay, even though that thing was flush, it was making good money, it is what bred you for this.
Right.
And this has way more long-term potential.
100%.
And I just really, like, I actually, especially now, I enjoy it.
That's good, dude. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if I was miserable doing what I was doing or what I'm doing, I wouldn't choose to do it.
Yeah.
And there's always things that we don't like in businesses.
Yeah.
But they're small enough to where it's like I could still deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've never been able to, even as young as like my first job and like specifically my first like career job out of college, I've never been able to be that person who says, I hate what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. I'll be done with it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You have to.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we talk about relationships too. A lot of people stick out relationships that they're really bad in. So it can be the same thing with a job. A lot of people do have the fear of, what's next. Yeah. If they don't find something with a job or with a person, if they don't find the next best thing that they can jump to and figure it out.
What people are doing now, though, is they're figuring that out while they're still relationships or in business.
Or
in
business,
they're feeling out what they want to protect themselves, so they have that guarantee. So like, okay, now I feel a little bit. I got a more comfortable parachute getting out of this mess. So this is already lined up over there.
Right.
Certain situations that's okay, but a lot of situations that's not okay.
Relationships is definitely not okay.
And I just spoke at this men's conference like a month ago, and it was a really great group of guys. But I'm not discouraging anymore when I talk about owning a business or entrepreneurism. My opinion's so much different. But I told them, if you guys are seeking guarantees, don't do this. Don't open a business. Don't start a business, because there is no guarantee. You, as the owner, as the leader, you have to be the guarantee to everybody else who's following behind you. Mm-hmm. You have to see it, or you have to believe it before you see it. Everybody else, like, you tell them what you want to do, they're like, oh, Josh, that's cool. They need to see it first. Mm-hmm. Be like, no, I believe it. Now I'm going to convince you to follow me and do it, and it's going to be this, And I think right now, most everybody, and this is going to sound discouraging talk, it's like, we're seeking mentors. We're seeking, these are all good, but they aren't the like knight in shining armor. Mentors, business coaches, we're consuming all this. Like, that's not a guarantee.
No,
it's not a guarantee. You have to just go.
You have to do the shit.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah.
And I've always been able to do that. And I know one of my strong suits has been able to like empower and motivate other people as well, but because I believe so like firmly in it before you actually see it. And I've so many times, like, to the point I almost enjoy it, where like if so many people like, yeah, whatever, when you're saying like what you want to do or you're building, and then how it all shifts when it comes to fruition. It's the most rewarding feeling. Like, guys, I was saying this 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I was saying this 5 years ago, and now it's this behemoth.
Yeah.
I've done this a couple different times with a couple different business. Like, but you're kind of just furrowed at when you're first talking about it. And I still, even like, I have guys working for me at Dropkick that I've told, like, dude, you've been there, like, in those days. I'm in debt to you. I want you to get to the finish line with me, but I'll remind you every day. And you can ask them, like, I'm in debt to you for sticking it out, because your role wasn't glamorous, your pay wasn't glamorous, but you believed. And now, like, a couple in particular, like, their role is a lot more glamorous, their pay is a lot more glamorous, and also too, like, their future is really exciting.
Yeah.
But they stuck it out. I'm like, dude, if you're rowing the boat with me when it's a fucking storm, bro, when the sun is out, we are gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's great. But not everybody has it. Everybody just wants the
instant gratification. They
just want a guarantee. Like, if you want a guarantee, there's nothing wrong with it. Get a really good job and a really good culture. Right now, so much of the workforce has gone remote, so you have more freedom. This and that. Like, there's your guarantee. 1st and 15th, you're getting paid.
Yeah.
I
think it's fucking hard. I think it's really hard. I'm going to say this, and it's maybe a little controversial, but I think a lot of men in particular are very soft these days.
Oh, yeah.
And, when they think about business or running a company or anything like that, a lot of them think that a lot of shit's going to come really easy. But in reality, it is not easy. Like, to build a solid business, to build people behind you that are willing to work for you and believe in the same vision as you, it takes a strong leader, but it also, like, you got to have it in you to get up and go to work every day, even when you don't feel like doing shit. And there's a lot of lazy ass dudes out there.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah, that is controversial, staying soft, because I agree. What I do like seeing is there's such a more of an aspect on like our mental and physical health right now,
Right.
like being built strong.
Yeah.
But I always have to remind people, like, morning routines right now are a very popular thing, trendy thing. And I have a great morning routine. Like, guys, that's just a responsibility. You should wake up, you take care of yourself, get your head straight. What the fuck do you do the rest of the day? That's what matters. Like, you can have an amazing morning routine. I just watched this podcast with Jeff Bezos last week. Arguably the most powerful, most influential, successful guy in the world. They asked him about his morning. His words, he's like, for like the first 2 hours, he's like, this probably doesn't add up to a lot of people, but I putter. Like, I kind of walk around the house and I'll scroll on my phone. This guy was not talking about how he's like cold plunging, and then he's sprinting on a treadmill right as he gets out of bed. And he's like, no, he literally said, he's like, I putter. But that guy, when he goes in, he's fucking in.
Yeah.
That's, I'm like, we should all be committed to doing the stuff that I just talked about, like taking care of our health, taking care of like our headspace, all that. But the big thing is like, how do you play?
Right.
Like, do you play and that's where I think we've gotten soft.
Yeah.
No one's really committed to like, okay, today's going to be fucking dirty. This week's going to be, this month's going to be. I've had so much dirt, like so much dirty, disgusting work. But that is what's like built me. And it's also why I'm so confident in leading. I'm like, dude, I've done it.
Right.
You guys want to talk dirt?
Yeah.
You want to talk dirt? Talk dirt with me.
Yeah.
But
No,
I don't
that.
think everybody wants to skip that. They want what you have now.
Yeah, and I think as you get older, like your morning routine works for you, right? And there's other routines that work for other people, but I don't agree. I agree with you. I don't think a morning routine is like the end all be all. Like you still got to get to work. Like reading, doing cold plunges and all that shit's not going to get like you from point A to point B.
Yeah, well, and it's also like that is you taking care of you, and that is fundamental. And as you get a wife and kids and jobs and career, it becomes harder to do that. But then there has to be a big part of your life that you have service, like whether it's to your business, your employees, to whatever. How do you operate then? What is your routine then?
Sure.
What is your routine to your children? What's your routine to your employees? Which, like, that for me is maybe stuff that needs to be exposed a little bit more. Because I'm like, dude, everything, like, I feel my morning routine, I'm safeguarded. I'm safeguarded with my sleep and my morning, because that is for me. That's what keeps me whole, and I feel a little bit selfish. But I know that's what makes me the type of person I am. But then when I'm of service, like when I'm going into work, like that's the real money maker,
Yeah.
So I think we're missing a very big part of the recipe. But it is good that, right now more than ever, taking care of our mental and physical health couldn't be more popular. I think it's going to only get more popular.
Right.
So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, as a business owner, I think we mental health is big with owning a business. I think that's what I like, going to the gym in the morning in my routine. But it just helps because if I'm going through if I have a shitty day or whatever, like that stuff in the morning typically helps me not have a worse day. If I was lazy as fuck, if I didn't go to the gym, if I didn't get my workout in, I don't know, I'd probably be even more depressed.
Yeah, but don't you agree? Because I've always gone to the gym. It's just become my cadence, my routine.
Yeah.
But I don't describe it like I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. My explanation is like, if I have a healthy, functioning body, shame on me if I don't take care of it.
Yeah.
Like, it is my responsibility. That's why it's like, and this could be controversial too to anybody. It's like, if you let yourself get unhealthy or beyond unhealthy, shame on you. Like, there's so many people, like, the quickest way to have gratitude about your health, become unhealthy, have a sickness, have something like really scary. You're like, oh, all of a sudden now it's your number one concern. There's nothing else that matters.
Right.
When you have a health scare, nothing else matters. So why don't we get ahead of that and exercise, take care of ourselves, do all this stuff? There's no guarantee that still something might not come to our front door, but it's not going to hit us as hard.
Yeah. So
So I'm like, I don't ever want to look back and be like, fuck, I smoked all those years, smoking cigarettes, and I'm like, I want to look back and I did my absolute best. So if something comes, it comes. But in the meantime, I'm going to take care. Like, this is our vehicle, man.
Yeah.
This is what gets us around.
100%,
And I want to ride.
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
I want to ride.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take care of it.
Yeah. I want to live for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like, men are getting younger, women are getting, like, appearance, looking, acting. Like, I remember growing up what 30 and 40 and 50 looked like. What it looks like now couldn't be any, like, more different.
Yeah. Dude, I saw something too recently where they were talking about that we're going to probably live longer.
Yeah. I
Like
believe it.
yeah, I mean, I guarantee that those blood panels are just going to get smarter and smarter.
Yeah.
And like,
Dude, think about our parents' generation. Like, they didn't have a shred of the knowledge about health and wellness and diet and all that. They were cranking down cigarettes and eating greasy processed food.
Yeah.
And, like, sleeping like shit and drinking all, like, they lived, like, that's at least how my folks were, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck? But exercise, I never, ever once saw either of my parents exercise. Ever. Now it's like moms and dads are out exercising their kids.
yep.
You know?
Yeah. No, dude, I mean, it's great. And I think it's important. I mean, it's funny. You were talking about smoking, and my grandpa and my grandma both smoked cigarettes, like all my younger, when I was super young. And then my grandpa would smoke cigars, like even in his 70s. And I'm like, fuck, dude. Like nowadays, like
wild?
it's, I mean, I'll still smoke a cigar here and there, but like every day is a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, like, I think that's the driver
Yeah.
is it's not putting on a pedestal. Like, I want to have a vehicle that takes me to some bigger, better places. So that's the commitment.
Mic drop. I
Yeah.
love that. But bro, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you. This is fun shooting the shit.
For sure.
Got into a bunch of different random stuff, relationships and business and all that. It's
Yeah,
good.
man.
Love it, dude.
Yeah. This felt as natural as it gets.
Yeah.
My man.
Cool, man. Well, appreciate you for coming on. Thanks again. And then we will leave all of his stuff in the description. So thanks again for watching.